Okay, let's talk about the meter signatures first. So, here are our most common compound meter signatures: 6898 and 128. So, all of them have the lower number of 8, which means we're going to be looking at eighth notes as the division of the beat. Now, these three can be called 6/8 can also be called duple meter, 9/8 triple, and 12/8 quadruple for the exact reason that I just explained. Let's put some eighth notes in these things just so we can see what's happening here. Okay, now you see why we can call 6/8 duple meter, because there are two big groups of 3, right? We're in a compound meter, so we know things are going to be grouped by 3 instead of 2, which they are in simple meter. So simple meter, things are grouped in groups of 2. In compound meter, they're in groups of 3, and we can furthermore call this a duple meter because we can feel that big 2. We could feel 1 da da 2 da da 1 da da 2 da da if we wanted to. We could also feel 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. Typically when you're performing this, you're going to put an accent on that 4. So you would feel 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. Right? So duple meter. 9/8 we sometimes call triple meter. And that's why, because there are 3 big groups of 3. But there are also 9/8 notes, so we call it 9/8. And 12/8 we sometimes call quadruple meter. And you can probably guess what's going to happen when I fill this with eighth notes now. Boom. 4 big groups of 3, right? Now, in the previous video, I mentioned something about this dotted quarter note that I want to clear up here. Remember from when we talked about how to read rhythms, what would be a single note or a single rhythm that we could write that would encapsulate 3 eighth notes? It's a dotted quarter note. So let me do this. Let me get rid of these. See if I can put one of these down. There we go. Okay, now this is a dotted quarter note. Dotted quarter note equals 3 eighth notes, because remember the rule for adding a dot to a rhythmic dot. The rule is you take the number of the amount of time that beat normally gets, and then you add half of it to it. So this normally is 2 eighth notes. Half of that would be 1 eighth note, and you add that to it, which makes 3 eighth notes. So 1 2 3 1, right? So these 3 and this equals the same. The reason I'm pointing that out is because when we're in compound meter, you see a lot of dotted rhythms, particularly a lot of dotted quarter notes and things like that, because those take up one of those bigger beats. One of those, if we're in duple meter or triple meter, they're going to take up 1. Now, back to meters. More on that in a minute, but I want to talk about meters. Now, our bottom note is almost always 8 when we're in duple meters, or when we're in compound meters, but there are some oddities that can happen. Now, MuseScore, this program I'm using, doesn't easily give me access to some of those. I'm sure they're here somewhere. But most of the time when we're in compound meter, we're focusing on eighth notes, but you could have a 6/4, 9/4, or 12/4 time where the amount basically let's look at 9/8 here. If this was 9/4, these would all be quarter notes, right? There would be 9 quarter notes in the bar. That's weird. It's not the most common thing you see every day. It's a little strange, but it does happen. Another thing you can see is 9/16 or 6/16 or 12/16, where these would all be 16th notes, right? That can happen as well. You see that typically at a slower tempo, it gives almost the same feel as this. And it happens sometimes. It's relatively rare, but in some piece of music, you might see that. And you just have to remember that if it's 12/16 time, for example, it's going to be quadruple meter. So you're going to have groups of three. They're going to be groups of 3/16 notes in that case. And then if you want to do this and write a rhythm that shows the full duration of one of the bigger groups, in that case, in a 12/16, it's going to be a dotted eighth note, not a dotted quarter note. So you just increase everything by one rhythmic value. It's kind of confusing, but we'll see this in context shortly.